we were doing those 80s movies, deep dives, but they didn't end up being really deep dives because we realized we didn't have that much to say. So
for yourself.
What happens? My daughter Darian was watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I believe was our last deep dive we did.
Yes.
And then on the weekend, she finds that A&E is airing one of those like behind the story about Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Nice.
I happened to
see.
It
was the 35th anniversary of the movie, by the way. That's why I think.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They copied our deep dive.
But this was
clips from us.
I think it was done like 10 years ago. Yeah, there was a bit from Lester in there. There was Matthew Broderick. There was a clip from him and Jennifer Grey and Lester. So I learned a lot of interesting facts about the movie. So I thought we could redo our deep dive right now. First of all, the original cut.
It's a good thing you gave us a heads up on this.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we can
bring our fully prepared.
Is Darian coming on the pod?
No. I'm just going to throw some factoids at you. It's not going to be a long thing.
I love it. I do have a comment for the end.
The original John Hughes cut was 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
In the original cut, Ferris was a much darker character.
Okay.
They compared him to Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Smoker, drinker, and some of his at the camera soliloquies, that there are a handful of in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, were longer and darker. Like there was one about nuclear war and other things. In
fairness, nuclear war was a lot more of an issue back in the 80s.
It sure 100%. Was. Well, what was one of Matthew Broderick's, I think, movies prior to Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
1984.
No, War Games. Yeah. War Games.
Wasn't War Games after?
I don't know. I just know. Yeah, you're probably close. And War Games was a big deal.
Deep dive.
War Games was 19.
Hey, let's do a deep dive into War Games. War Games probably doesn't hold up too well because it's one of those like he's playing with his computer and his computer sets off. He hacks into the Pentagon or something.
Yeah,
and ends up almost causing a nuclear war, right?
Yeah, but in the 80s, you were able to do that. To be fair.
Well, I think it's very much like the end of Rocky IV. Like the computer at the end of War Games, I think says something like, "Why can't we all just get along?" or something like this, and everyone goes, "Right, true."
War Games.
If you can change,
1983.
I can change.
1983. Oh, Dabney Coleman, I remember him.
What are you listing right now?
The cast of War Games.
So we're done with Ferris Bueller.
No,
we're back. Come on.
The thing I found most interesting about the cutouts was that in the original cut of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he has two young siblings.
Oh.
And yes, like an 8-year-old or like a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old brother and 6-year-old sister or something.
Wow.
Who they completely cut out of the movie. And the only evidence of this, and I'm sure nerds on social media or on the internet have found this out, is that when the principal is in the house at the end of the movie, he walks past the fridge and there are little kids' drawings on the fridge. And so that's the only telling sign in the movie that they screwed up as far as
that could have been Ferris's parents just holding on to his stuff for too long.
No.
Alarming way.
Yeah, very alarming.
What was interesting to find out these kids that were like, here he is, you're a little kid, you're in this big John Ferris movie, and you think it's all set, you shot it and everything, and then that's John Hughes, and then you're out, you're cutting on the floor. Like,
you think you're on the only one who can relate. Puffy, what's that feeling like when you end up on the cutting room floor?
I was one of the kids in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That was one of my early. It was me and Drew Barrymore, and we were the two young kids.
You were handsome kid one, but they cut you.
I was handsome kid one.
Another person who ended up on the cutting room floor, almost, Louis Anderson. I think we may have discussed Louis Anderson. Chewy Louis Anderson makes a brief cameo delivering flowers to Ferris's house. Yeah. But I believe you may not even see him or only see him for a few frames. There was an entire 5-minute scene involving Louis Anderson completely chopped from the movie. And finally, this is not as fun, but when they tested the movie, the testing was, people laughed a lot, but there was incredibly negative testing from women. All of it due to one line from Sloane. When Sloane and Cameron, is that
Cameron? Yep.
Cameron,
yeah, the guy from Succession. When they are walking through the city, I think it's when Ferris is on the parade, or just before, or just after, singing "Shake It Up, Baby." Sloane, they're talking about relationships and the future, and Sloane says a girl can always cut out by just having a baby and finding a guy. So Sloane says something like that, like a cop out. A girl can always cop out by just having a baby and finding a guy. Yeah. The negative response to that from test audiences was so great. They cut that one line out of the movie, and like the approval or disapproval of the movie went from like 30% among women to 98% among women. One line from the movie that saved Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah. And what else? The only other thing that was interesting was that the Shake It Up Baby scene that I was talking about was near the beginning. Yeah, it was near the beginning of the day.
Oh,
and the editor suggested to John Hughes that it was more of a, like, it should be the end of the day, the last thing before they go back. Which seems obvious, right?
It's a very cathartic scene, right? So that makes sense. Yeah, I'm surprised it would have been at the beginning anyway. But it's like, as we said on our initial conversation about this, that's my favorite scene from the whole movie. I just think that it's so well shot. You know, really wonderful shot.
But the only thing is, hold on. But when you're watching that scene, you can tell it was in the morning with the daylight. That was the thing that kind of threw me when I was watching it as a child.
I couldn't watch it again.
In the theater, you yelled at the screen, "This is morning!" Like, idiot!
This happened earlier. This happened before the baseball game.
Yeah, it's pretty noticeable.
I could tell.
Now, Lester, of note, they filmed that scene without having the rights to Twist and Shout.
Really?
And the Beatles were incredibly reluctant to ever sell their songs to films.
They were absolutely.
I know I'm being facetious.
Apparently it all came down to one meeting, and they paid a crap load of money to get the rights to the song, but basically they had no backup. So if the Beatles had said no, that whole scene was cut from the movie. Wow. Which seems crazy to me that they would film that scene before they actually shot the movie.
Well, think of all the people in that scene and all the organization you got to do for something. That might get crazy. Yeah,
no doubt about it.
And apparently Paul McCartney hated it because there were horns. You know, the band was playing, and Paul McCartney said there should be no horns on Twist and Shout. So there you go. That's my little Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I got a question because I saw it recently as I was flipping through the channels, and Matthew Broderick obviously does an incredible job as the lead. But do you think, like, the way he looks, that they cast the right person? Because he really does look like a kid getting away with all this.
Like, no, I think I can't see anybody else. Yeah, I can't see anybody else. Like, he's kind of cool.
I'm just saying, like,
cool.
if that happened in real life, no one would buy it. Do you know what I mean? He wouldn't be able to pull off any of these things.
Why?
Because he looks like a kid. Young? Yeah.
Oh, you mean
he looks like a little kid,
being the guy at the restaurant, Sausage King
of Chicago. Who's gonna, like? They would have had to cast someone else for that to be actually believable. But I guess the allure of this movie is that, you know, it could just be your average kid that has all these things.
Right.
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think he was perfect. And the one other thing, he did
a great job. Yeah.
You know, the very end of the movie, like nowadays, when we used to get to go see movies, there's often something that happens. You stay for the credits because there's something, especially in comedies. You know, every Will Ferrell movie, and there's always something that happens at the end of the movie. Steve Carell movies.
Yeah.
That never happened before. And Ferris Bueller was one of the first scenes to do that. John Hughes filmed the scene of Ferris going, "Why are you still here? It's over.
Yeah.
Go home." Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they put that at the end of the credits, but in the test audiences, everybody got up and left the room. So nobody was around to stay. So what they ended up doing was there's a scene where the principal, after he's got crap kicked out of him by Jennifer Grey, spoiler alert, gets on the bus and has to sit down with all the kids on the bus to go back to the school or whatever. And that scene was cut from the movie. So the editor said, "I'm going to put that, why don't I stick that scene on throughout the credits and then everybody will stick around to see the Ferris thing at the end.
Really
smart.
Genius.
Very smart.
It
Very
sounds
smart.
like
This
the
goes to show you
editor
how-
of this movie saved the movie.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, is that first cut available anywhere to watch?
Well, I don't know why they wouldn't have it somewhere. I guess I think those were the days before director's cuts, and now John Hughes has passed away, so you would never get the rights to it. But I think, Puffy, you make a point that we always, people win Best Director at the Oscars, and John Hughes was obviously a brilliant guy in the films that he did, although some of his stuff, as we've said, doesn't live up standards wise. But he was still a brilliant filmmaker. But that first 2 hours and 45 minutes looks like it would be a disaster.
Guys, I've been saying this for years. It's all in the editing.
I knew you were gonna get
Never
there.
mind
I knew you were
these
gonna get there.
overpaid actors.
Damn straight.